Have you ever felt overwhelmed by your emotions, like you're being tossed around by every mood, opinion, or situation? What if I told you that true power doesn't come from controlling others or circumstances, but from mastering your own emotional world? Emotional sovereignty is the art of reclaiming your inner authority, standing firm in your feelings without being controlled by them. Today, we'll explore the psychology behind emotional sovereignty, why it's crucial for your freedom, and how you can cultivate it to live a more empowered, balanced life. What is emotional sovereignty? Emotional sovereignty is the radical act of owning your emotional landscape, recognizing that while you cannot always control what you feel, you can control how you relate to those feelings. It's a form of inner authority where your emotions don't dictate your actions, but instead inform your conscious choices. Psychologically, emotional sovereignty means stepping out of automatic, reactive patterns and into mindful awareness. It's about creating a space between stimulus and response, a moment where you decide your path instead of being swept away by impulse or external influence. This doesn't mean suppressing emotions or pretending everything is fine. Rather, it means feeling fully and deeply without losing yourself to chaos. Emotional sovereignty requires maturity and practice, but it ultimately leads to a profound sense of freedom. You become less vulnerable to manipulation, less reactive to stress, and more grounded in your true self. It's the foundation of emotional intelligence and self-mastery, a skill that empowers you to navigate life's ups and downs with grace and resilience. Why emotional sovereignty matters for your mental health. Your mental health depends heavily on how you manage your emotional world. Without emotional sovereignty, feelings like anxiety, anger, or sadness can spiral out of control, triggering harmful thought loops and behaviors. Psychologists link emotional dysregulation to many mental health issues such as depression, anxiety disorders, and chronic stress. When you lack control over your emotional responses, you often feel overwhelmed, helpless, and stuck in cycles of suffering. Conversely, cultivating emotional sovereignty builds resilience, your ability to withstand emotional storms without breaking down. It improves self-esteem because you learn to trust yourself to handle whatever arises internally. This self-trust decreases dependence on others for validation or emotional support, which is crucial for balanced relationships. Emotional sovereignty also enhances cognitive clarity. When emotions are unchecked, they cloud judgment and decision-making. But when regulated, they provide valuable information that enriches your choices. In essence, emotional sovereignty is a cornerstone of mental wellness, helping you live more peacefully and authentically in a chaotic world. The psychology behind emotional reactivity. Emotional reactivity is a natural, biological response rooted in the brain's limbic system, particularly the amygdala, which processes threat and triggers the fight, flight, or freeze response. This system evolved to keep us safe from immediate physical danger, but in modern life, it often reacts to social, emotional, or psychological threats that aren't life-threatening. When triggered, the brain floods the body with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, hijacking rational thought and making you prone to impulsive reactions. This neurobiological process explains why you might say or do things in the heat of the moment that you later regret. Psychological trauma, unresolved stress, and learned patterns amplify this reactivity, creating cycles where emotional outbursts become habitual. Over time, chronic emotional reactivity rewires your brain toward hypervigilance and sensitivity, exhausting your nervous system. Understanding this biological basis is empowering because it shows emotional reactivity isn't a personal flaw, it's a survival mechanism. The path to emotional sovereignty involves calming the nervous system, building awareness of triggers, and developing tools to pause and choose responses consciously rather than reacting reflexively. How childhood and conditioning shape your emotional patterns. From infancy, your emotional responses are shaped by early experiences with caregivers and environment. Attachment theory reveals that secure attachments, where a child feels seen, heard, and soothed, build a foundation for emotional regulation and trust. Conversely, neglect, trauma, or inconsistent care condition the brain to expect threat, insecurity, or emotional abandonment. These early patterns create internal blueprints that govern how you process emotions and relate to others throughout life. You may find yourself overreacting, shutting down, or avoiding feelings based on these unconscious templates. Conditioning doesn't stop in childhood. It extends into cultural, familial, and social conditioning that teaches you what emotions are acceptable or dangerous to express. The good news is that these patterns are not fixed. Through conscious work like therapy, mindfulness, and self-compassion, you can rewire your emotional responses and release limiting conditioning. This awareness of how your past shapes your present feelings is a crucial step toward reclaiming your emotional sovereignty. It's the ability to observe your thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations without immediately identifying or reacting to them. This metacognitive skill creates the necessary distance to see emotions as passing experiences rather than fixed truths or commands. When you cultivate self-awareness, you begin to notice the subtle cues of rising tension, anxiety, or anger before they overwhelm you. You can ask yourself, what am I feeling? Why might I be feeling this way? What story am I telling myself? This curious, compassionate observation interrupts automatic reactive cycles and opens space for choice. Psychologically, self-awareness strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the brain area responsible for executive functions like impulse control and decision-making. Practices such as journaling, meditation, and mindfulness enhance self-awareness by training your mind to become the witness instead of the captive of emotional storms. As your self-awareness grows, so does your capacity to respond with clarity and calm, reclaiming your power moment by moment. Techniques to build emotional boundaries and resilience. Building emotional sovereignty requires strong boundaries and resilience. Boundaries protect your emotional energy. They are the limits you set to safeguard your mental well-being from being overwhelmed or manipulated by others. Learning to say no, detach from toxic influences, and prioritize your needs are critical skills. Psychologically, boundaries foster a sense of safety and control, which calms the nervous system and reduces emotional reactivity. Resilience, on the other hand, is the capacity to bounce back from adversity, pain, or stress. It's cultivated through practices that strengthen your emotional regulation. Deep breathing, grounding exercises, cognitive reframing, and self-compassion. Journaling helps process difficult emotions, while mindfulness anchors you in the present moment, preventing spirals into rumination. Therapy or coaching can provide guidance and tools to build these capacities further. Remember, boundaries and resilience aren't walls that isolate you. They are flexible shields that allow you to engage fully with life while maintaining your emotional sovereignty. Living as your own emotional authority. A daily practice. Emotional sovereignty isn't a destination, it's a daily practice and way of being. It means committing to show up for yourself with honesty, compassion, and courage every day. Start by checking in with your emotions regularly. Name what you feel and allow space for the full experience. Use mindful pauses when triggered to breathe and choose your response rather than reacting automatically. Set clear boundaries with others and honor your needs without guilt. Reflect daily on moments where you practiced emotional authority and areas where you struggled. This ongoing reflection deepens your self-awareness and strengthens your inner authority. Over time, emotional sovereignty becomes less effortful and more natural, a part of your identity rather than a skill you have to summon. You'll notice greater peace, clearer decision-making, and healthier relationships as your emotional power grows. This journey isn't linear. It involves setbacks and breakthroughs, but the commitment to reclaim your power shapes a life lived on your own terms.